Our first question comes from April Ritter, and she asks, did starting to be in horror movies at such a young age affect you in any way?
Absolutely. I go to therapy twice a week. No, not really. I mean, I don't know. It's maybe as I got older, the newer Halloweens maybe had a little... The movies I've done as an adult are much more challenging than what I did as a child. I didn't have nightmares, or, everyone protects you as a kid on set. So I didn't have nightmares, or it didn't really affect me. It was fun. As I got older and started doing adult roles where I was, beaten, tortured, raped, stabbed, killed, murdered, the killer, that stuff is a little bit harder to shake off at the end of the day.
I actually read an interview where you did talk about that the Rob Zombie Halloween movies were far more traumatic for you than the movies you did.
I didn't really understand why, but it was harder to shake it off at the end of the day, and I think it's because he never got me as a kid. Michael never really got close. As Annie, he got me and then got me again and got me for good this time. So it was definitely the first time that I think I had come back in a horror movie where I was attacked to the point of dying. I did Urban Legend, but that was mostly a double that was struggling a bit. It was me too, but I was then found dead. I didn't have to die in it. So it was the first movie coming back, I think, where I actually had a pretty big death scene.
This isn't a popular opinion, but my favorite Rob Zombie movie was actually Halloween 2, because I thought he did a few interesting things with how traditionally a slasher sequel works. And one of them is that we see the trauma inflicted on the characters from the previous installment. Usually it's just glossed over and they're more or less depressed for the sequel. In his sequel, they're downright devastated. Laurie has post-traumatic stress disorder, and the movie begins with this really incredible hospital sequence where you're being stitched together. So tell me what that experience was like filming that particular sequence.
I think it was, we came to Georgia to film, and we had a lot of rehearsals where Rob sort of gave, Brad Dourif and Scout and I, scenes or whatever, and we really talked about what would happen if this had actually happened to us in real life, and where we would be and how it would change. And for me, it was a great transition because it was much easier for me to play the mother, nurturer, caretaker of Laurie, because in real life, Danielle, was sort of watching out for Scout as far as, the franchise and letting her know what was about to happen in her career. And she's much younger than me. I was 32 and she was like 20 maybe. I think there's a 12-year age difference between us. So I was already the caretaker. And so being able to finally play a bit more of myself, where in Rob Zombie's, in the first Halloween, I had to young it and dumb it up a bit more. So it was nice to be able to come back and really kind of work through a lot of that stuff about what would happen if this were to happen to us, which a lot of, like you were saying, a lot of horror directors don't really give a crap about, like, what would happen to you and how you would be. You're dead unless you're the final girl, and then you come back and then you're all of a sudden a badass and you get to go back and kill the killer, or not, or then you die and then somebody else takes over. So it's nice that he really focuses on character development. I like that part of what his movies are all about. Actually, it was not Annie Brackett that was getting stitched up in the opening of Halloween 2. It was Laurie that was getting stitched up. I was already in the hospital and in my coma state, I guess you would say, with already been gone through surgery.
All right, so you're calling me out.
Yes.
You're telling me I pulled the Last Chance Lance.
Okay.
I blame it on Rob Zombie's frenetic editing style.
Yes. Okay,
right?
We'll blame it on Rob.
He had me so
even though he wasn't the
discombobulated
editor.
I couldn't tell what the hell was going on.
Good. I guess it worked then.
Alex Santana asks, I guess he put the in there to make it clear that he was being thoughtful here. For someone known for being an actress in the genre of horror, how has your opinion of what horror entertainment is evolved over the years?
Wow, the business in general has changed. The world has changed. Everything's changed over the years. It's like computers. I didn't use computers in high school. I'm 36, but I had a Commodore 64 on a floppy disk. Then I'd play Wheel of Fortune. Now kids 4-year-olds are using iPads in preschool. So I think that just in general, things have evolved. Entertainment, what you can do has evolved as far as CGI and effects and bigger, badder, faster, more money. I mean, everything has just changed. Which is what I love about the Hatchet series and sort of old school horror, is that practical effects to me are still the best. I can still escape and get taken into this world through what we do as actors and not rely solely upon the visual effects. That's amazing in and of itself, but that's a different kind of movie. So when we can blend the two without having one outweigh the other, I think that's great. It just seems to be that there's not really much. It seems to be it's one or the other. I think there's trailers for a movie I don't want to say, but I've seen recently that I didn't even know there were actors in it. It just is all giant robots, and it's unfortunate because there were years where I was afraid that we wouldn't need actors anymore because they'd go to animation or it'd be some CGI something or other. So people still need us if we can kind of get back to that. So I think we've lacked that over the last couple of years. So if we can get back to telling story, which horror hasn't really had for many years. The faces, the people are interchangeable. It was always, the jock, the dumb girl, the bimbo, the this, the that, and I think Scream made great fun of that. So I think that then people went, whoa, actually they're catching on to this right now. So I mean, the movie that I directed, Among Friends, I poked fun at all of that. While the stereotypes were there, it was a little bit different. So I think it's just about people not wanting to jump on the bandwagon and continue to make the same movies because they make money. I mean, how many found footage movies are we going to make? Great. Paranormal Activity was great. I'm so bored with it. So I think, remakes, great. I'm so bored with it. So I think that if we can do it, sure, everyone's going to want a copycat. It's like fashion. It's like, it's hot, it's hip, it's new, it's great. But when you go to, somewhere, say the Midwest or down south, and it's like the fashion there is what was here 5 years ago, it's old by now. So if we can just sort of continue to be creative and kind of take chances, and I think it's a long-winded answer, but I think in our genre, with the limited money that we're given to make these movies, because there's not a lot of movies that are made for a large budgets, even though these movies make a lot of money. We have a chance to be a little bit more creative with the money that we're given instead of relying upon, I've heard many times in my career, we'll fix it in post. Let's not fix it in post. Let's just do it. If you don't know how to do it, then don't make movies. So I think that that's sort of where I stand. It's a good thing, and it's evolved in a good way and in a bad way as well.
You're being attacked by a homicidal housefly.
I see. What is that?
I don't know, but
I smell sweet. It's a big fly. Where is it? I'll kill it. I do that well. I think it's died. Has it died? I heard it buzzing around, and then now it's gone.
We'll deal with it. Scott Jenkins asks, "Hi Danielle, just let me start off by saying you're amazing.
Why, thanks.
How did you like working with Kane? Your directing skills are awesome. Good job. What is your next project? If there is going to be a Hatchet 4, are you going to be in it?"
Wow, he just asked like 5 questions in one. He just wants to know it all.
He just wants everything, yeah.
Kane is like my big brother. I adore Kane. We did Fear Clinic together. We've done the convention circuit for a million years together, Hatchet 2, Hatchet 3. He's also in Among Friends. I will continue to work with Kane, be friends with Kane. Kane's coming to my wedding. Kane is like family to me. I absolutely adore him. So Kane and I are like this. He's got my back, that's for sure. And we always make sure we sit next to each other wherever we go. And he's definitely keeps an eye on me for sure. Is there going to be a Hatchet 4? I have no idea. I know that Adam wrote a beginning, a middle, and an end. It seems like Hatchet 3 is the end of the story. If they were to come back with a 4th, it'd be something, I guess, starting over again. But I think that if the story is true to what Adam was trying to do, then that is really the way to kill Victor Crowley. Then the series would be over. You never say never, kind of like in Halloween 2, you thought that Sherry Moon Zombie blew her head off, and then she came back in flashbacks. So maybe Annie could even come back in some sort of weird flashbacks with Laurie. I have no idea. I don't think that's going to happen, but until you see a script and get a call, you never know what they're going to do.
Kane's got a fun little cameo in your movie among friends.
Yeah. It was one of those, Among Friends was a project among friends. And I kept feeling like if you can't shoot a movie with your friends, then why shoot a movie? And in our genre community, we work with each other over and over and over again. It's like Bill Moseley and I have done so many projects together as well. And so when knowing how great of an actor Kane is and how excited he was to be able to have an actual role in Hatchet 2 and be able to do something as an actor, I wanted to give him that opportunity in Among Friends to be the Kane that I know, which is sassy and smart. He's like Mensa smart and wicked funny and has this like dirty sense of humor.
And a terrific dancer.
Totally, even though he says that he doesn't remember ever dancing on film. And I'm like, dude, obviously there were no behind the scenes. We were rolling. I didn't shoot you and then stick it in the movie. So he doesn't remember me getting him, which is what's so great about me as a director, is that I can get you to do things that you wouldn't probably normally do for other directors. But all of the stuff out of the limo, when Kane's character is improvising and saying stuff to everybody as they come out, that's all Kane. I just said, do whatever you want to do. I want you just to be you. Have fun with it. Just do whatever you want to do. And out came the Kane Hodder that I know and love.
Elizabeth Greer mentions that she really wants to see another Hatchet movie because she really wants your character to live.
Oh, that's nice. It's sweet that people don't want me to die, but everyone dies at some point. So listen, if they made another one and the script was great and somehow it made sense for Mary Beth to come back, then of course I would. I love this franchise. It's bittersweet that it could be over and there may no longer be any Mary Beth Crowley action. Not to say that Kane and I won't go, toe-to-toe in another franchise, but I think that it's kind of how I feel about Halloween. I don't want to be the last person to leave the party. It may be good to kind of end it where it is, which is just a great trilogy. I mean, it's a great 1, 2, and 3. So that's very sweet that she doesn't want me to die. I know people have come to me after Halloween 2 and they're like, I cried. I felt like such an idiot when I was bawling in the theater, but I didn't want you to die. And it's like, I did 4 movies, guys. It's kind of time for me to go. So there'll be others, don't worry.
Christopher Decker says, on the topic of franchises, Halloween and Hatchet, would you consider another major franchise like Friday the 13th? There is a new movie in the works, and I think you should star.
Aw. I can't be that girl. I mean, Halloween was good for me because that's what started my career. So it makes sense for me to come back in that movie. I don't want to be... It seems almost greedy to come back and try to reboot myself in another franchise. I think that if we're trying to raise money now to do a Fear Clinic franchise, and that's something that I started from the beginning with Robert Englund and Kane. So that would be lovely because Kane and Robert and I are both done with our franchises. So it'd be nice to start something else with all of them. But if I don't think that, I think I'm good with Halloween. I don't think because then it's going to be, what did you like doing better? What's a better movie, Jason or Michael? And it's like, I love Kane and I love the guys that play Michael, so I can't really. It's like trying to pick your favorite kid. Of course, I'm biased to Michael because of the Halloween series, but I don't think that Friday the 13th is the place for me, unless I got a great script and thought, this might be kind of fun. But I really would have to think about it.
Glenn Hicks and Mike Morrow both ask, what director have you dreamed of working with?
Catherine Bigelow would be fantastic. Larry Clark would be fantastic. Obviously, Quentin Tarantino would be fantastic. He writes such awesome kick-ass chicks. Love. There's actually a lot. Gary Marshall. There's you name it, and there's lots that I would dream to work with. You're
friends with Quentin?
I am, yeah.
Do you ever ask him, hey, why don't you write me a part?
I only busted his balls when I was before I knew him well, because I love Death Proof, and I really wanted to be a part of it.
You should have been in Death Proof.
I
what
know.
The hell went wrong
well,
there?
Casting wouldn't see me because they thought that I wasn't right. So when I told him, after I became friends with him and said, I really tried to get into audition for you for Death Proof, and he was like, what do you mean? what do you mean you were trying to get in? I was looking for that character. I couldn't find anybody. I would have cast you in a second. I was like, oh my God, are you serious? He's like, oh my God, you'd have been great in that. I would have loved to have had you. So I was actually supposed to have a small part in Django, and I wrote him. I for the first time actually took it upon myself and wrote him an email and said, so rumor has it you're doing a movie called Django Unchained. And I was actually at his house when he showed me the final script, and I was like, I think actually it was Inglorious that I was at his house for, and I was like, I think you spelt bastards wrong. How do you tell him like it's spelled wrong? Then I realized, it's the way it's supposed to be. But I saw that on his counter in his kitchen. And then he went to do Django, so I emailed him and said, I know you're doing this movie. I would love to, like, if there's anything in there for me, I would love to do something in it. Thinking like, I'd never ask for anything ever. It's just kind of weird. Just, you don't want to not be just friends, you know what I mean? And even though he talks to me about horror movies, like, he's the fan, even though I'm probably a bigger fan of his than he is of mine. Like, he could talk about it with me, but I feel weird talking about it with him. And so even though I actually sat and have watched his movies that I hadn't seen, you know, from Dusk Till Dawn, like, I'd never seen it. And he was like, what do you mean you've never seen it? So I sat in his house with him and I watched it in his living room, and he looked at me and he was like, I can't believe I'm watching my movie with Danielle Harris on my couch. And I was like, I can't believe I'm sitting in Quentin Tarantino's house on your couch watching you on TV. Like, that's so crazy to me. So there's this like weird thing between us. So I emailed him and he didn't email me back. And then I got a call the next day saying that Quentin wants you to come in and audition for this role for Django. And I was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. Do I call him and ask him what I do? But there was no signs. I knew I was going to be this like school marm. It ended up not being in the actual movie. But I was supposed to go into audition. I was on my way to the audition. I was going to work with him in the room. I didn't want to call him before. And I got a call saying that he's running late on location scouting and that we were going to do it another day. And I was like, oh God. Okay, fine, that's fine. And then so much time had passed, and they ended up getting pushed a couple months and not shooting during that time. And then I was doing Hatchet and all the stuff was going on. They ended up writing the character out. So I know that there's maybe one day we'll do something like Pussy Galore. We'll do something really great together where I'll have more than like a little teeny bit part. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he casts me in something.
Glenn Hicks asks again, along with Scott Spencer, you have worked with many horror greats like Robert Englund, Kane Hodder, Tony Todd, etc. I could go on. But who would you love to work with if given the chance?
In the genre, I wonder if they're thinking?
Yeah, horror greats.
Gosh.
Actors.
Oh, I've worked with so many of them that I could just say one of my favorites that I've worked with. Well, two. I could say that so there's a lot. Zach
you got to be careful too, because you're going to piss somebody off if you go
I'm
down
like,
that road.
who have I worked with? Michael Biehn, Lance Henriksen. Like, there's lots that I've worked with, but I really had a great time working with Zach Galligan, because Gremlins is one of my favorite, if not favorite, horror movie next to Poltergeist. But maybe Jo Beth Williams would be really great to work with. But Zach and I only had one really good scene in Hatchet 3. So, and even in that scene, I kept thinking, oh my God, he's like, I'm such a fangirl. So it'd be great to have more stuff with him, because he was so on, we were so connected, and that was pretty rad. For me, being a kid of the 80s and kind of growing up watching those movies, Brad Dourif is one of my favorite actors, and he is one of the nicest people I've ever worked with, and just brilliant. So I would like to have another opportunity to work more with him and have a much meatier role. Lance Henriksen and I did a movie called Cyrus together, where I never talk about like acting technique or method, but I'm Meisner trained, and so is Lance, actually. And actually, there's a lot of actors that I worked with, but you never really talk about that stuff on set. And I was having a hard time at the end of Cyrus getting into the character, and we were running late, and it was like 6 a.m, and we were chasing the light, and I was exhausted, and I was just like, I need a minute, I got to do like repetition or something. And Lance was like, repetition, it's Meisner, I'll do it with you. So I got a chance to do like an acting exercise with Lance Henriksen, which is pretty rad. So like stuff like that would be awesome if I could do more of that with an actor for a longer period of time. I just don't know. In the horror world, you don't really have much time to take to be able to get into character and to do that stuff. Even though it's so intense, it's got to be really quick. So God, there's so many of them. I don't even know, but I'm happy with who I've worked with so far.
Miroslav Petkov asks, I think these are all made-up names, but have you ever considered making a movie with Neve Campbell, the star from the Scream movies? I think you two can fit very good in a movie together.
Oh, that would be nice. I have not. I do love in the opening of Scream that Drew Barrymore, one of the questions is Halloween, if she gets that right, then she gets to survive. And I was like, oh my God, I wonder if she's actually seen me in the Halloween movies. So that was sort of what was going on in my mind watching the movie. I don't know Neve. I've met her briefly once because it came down to her and I for Party of Five. So I actually went to network and tested for Party of Five for the role of Julia. So it was between Neve Campbell and myself. And this is
you hate her?
No, I don't hate her. So this is like back when, this is I was like 16 or something. So that's when she's from Canada. So that's back in the day when, she came out from Canada and it was down to her and I. So that's the only time I've ever met Neve Campbell. I don't think she's really much involved in the horror genre as much. I know she's a dancer and was doing a bunch of other movies kind of in that world, but never thought about it before, but never say never.
Isaiah J. Morgan asks, would you ever consider doing a movie with Bruce Campbell?
Sure. I mean, Bruce is great. I don't know him well, but I've seen him at conventions and stuff. I don't know if I could pull off the movies that he does. Like, it's so far from what I have done in the past. It would definitely be a challenge and probably really fun. I mean, he's an icon in our world, so I think it'd be great. I mean, God, to star opposite him would be really fun, I think, but very different from what I'm used to.
Nino Folletta asks, I know you went to the premiere of the movie Stitches, so would you be willing to star in the sequel?
I don't think that there's a part for me in the sequel. That's kind of a weird question. I really liked the movie. I love Ireland. Obviously MPI is involved, and those are like my boys. But it's a very young group of kids. I don't think I can play high school anymore. I hope not. I'm 36,
it's a compliment.
So thank you. Probably not going to be doing the sequel of Stitches.